So, what if the stories we've all been told about our ancient past are not just a little bit wrong, but are actually hiding a much, much stranger truth? In this explainer, we're diving into a perspective that really challenges everything you think you know about history, and maybe even about non human intelligence itself. We've all heard this question, right? And usually our minds jump straight to aliens, UFOs, maybe ancient astronauts visiting us from some far off star system. But what if the truth isn't out there at all? What if, by looking up at the stars for answers, we've been looking in completely the wrong direction this whole time?
Okay, so here's the big idea we're going to explore. We're going to swap the common idea of physical beings from other planets for the concept of spiritual or metaphysical entities from other planes of existence. So think less about spaceships and more about a fundamentally different understanding of reality itself.
So, where do you even begin to build a case that's this out there? Well, the source material first points to what it calls the physical evidence of a lost world. A world it claims was once dominated by, you guessed it, giants. And listen, this isn't some modern theory. This account here comes from Chief Rolling Thunder of the Comanches. He's describing this powerful, super advanced race of giants who he says lived in America long, long ago. And it's just one of many, many legends like this found all across Native American traditions. But it's not just oral traditions. The source points to this really fascinating and, controversial pattern from the 19th and 20th centuries. There were a ton of newspaper articles reporting the discovery of giant skeletons, and the story is almost always the same. Some folks find the bones, the Smithsonian Institution comes and collects them, and then, poof, they're never seen again. So this slide kind of lays out the three pillars of the physical argument. First, you've got these universal myths from cultures all over the world. Then you have actual eyewitness reports of giant skeletons from early European explorers. And finally, you've got these incredible megalithic ruins that even local legends say weren't built by their ancestors, but by an earlier race of giants. This all leads to one massive question, right? If this world of giants was real, what happened to them? I mean, if all the physical evidence has supposedly vanished, where else are we supposed to look? Well, the source suggests we need to look beyond the physical world entirely. So we're going to shift gears now, moving away from bones and ruins and into the esoteric, the spiritual forces that supposedly orchestrated our entire reality. And to do that, we have to redefine a key term, the Nephilim. Now, you got to forget the simple image of a big physical giant. In this context, the Nephilim are incredibly powerful spiritual entities, sometimes called archons, who are said to have created the material world we live in. You can almost think of them as the consciousness behind the forces we call planets, like Saturn. So how did we get here according to this story? Well, this slide breaks it down. First, an archon, often identified with Saturn, creates the physical realm. Then, a higher, more divine power breathes true spirit and creativity into the first human form. Well, the archons, the Nephilim, they get jealous. They realize this new being has a power they don't, true creativity. So to get control, they trap humanity, casting our consciousness down into the dense physical bodies we have today. And this brings us to a really radical conclusion about our own identity. This cosmic story, it isn't just about ancient history. According to the source, it's about us, right here, right now. And the implications, well, they're pretty staggering. You've probably heard this famous passage from Genesis 6. It's often cited as the origin of the Nephilim, the sons of God mating with the daughters of men. But what does that actually mean? This right here is the key difference. A literal reading gives you, angels with wings flying down and creating physical monsters. But the allegorical reading presented here suggests something totally different. That mating isn't a physical act, it's a metaphor for these spiritual forces, these archons, merging with and altering human consciousness itself. And that leads to the source's ultimate claim. We've been looking everywhere for the hybrids, the monsters, the giants, but what if the real hybrid is our own existence? A divine, creative consciousness trapped inside a material body. We are the hybrids. So, if we accept this premise, even just for a minute as a thought experiment, it forces us to question the absolute foundation of modern history, of science, and of how we understand ourselves. This slide really puts the two worldviews head to head.
Instead of the theory of evolution, simple to complex, this framework proposes a theory of de-evolution. The idea is we didn't climb up from apes, we fell down from a higher, larger, more spiritual state of being into the limited physical forms we have now. It's a de-evolution of consciousness into matter. And this idea of devolution, it offers a totally new lens for so many of those ancient mysteries. The giant ruins, the flood myths you find in every single culture, those persistent legends of a lost golden age. Maybe they aren't just myths. Maybe they're fragmented memories of a time before we were cast down into matter.
The source material really encourages a pretty radical shift in thinking. It asks us to just temporarily suspend all our ingrained assumptions about reality and to ask ourselves a very simple but incredibly profound question. And this is where we're going to leave it. This entire framework we've just walked through, it isn't really meant to provide a final answer. It's meant to provoke a fundamental question. After considering all of this, can any of us say with 100% certainty that we truly understand the nature of our reality?